What if the very thing we fear the most is also the thing we need the most? Why is it that we long for love, yet when it arrives at our doorstep, we shut the door? Think of the last time someone got close enough to see the real you. Maybe they offered unconditional kindness. Maybe they wanted to stay, yet suddenly, without even meaning to, you pulled back. You made excuses. You picked a fight. You chose distance instead of closeness. This is one of the most paradoxical truths about the human heart. We crave connection, yet we fear it at the same time. Psychologists call it attachment defense. Spiritual teachers call it fear of intimacy. The Stoics might have seen it as the mind's resistance to vulnerability. And neuroscience reveals something startling. Love literally rewires the brain, and that very transformation can feel threatening to our sense of safety. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of this paradox. We'll explore why we push away the ones we need most, and how to break free from this cycle. Not with shallow tips, but with deep psychological, spiritual, and even neurological truths that can transform the way you see love forever. Let's begin. The paradox of love and fear. Love is one of the most natural instincts of the human heart, yet also one of the most terrifying. From the moment we are born, we are wired for connection. A baby cannot survive without the presence of another. But as we grow, experiences of rejection, abandonment, or betrayal carve deep grooves into the psyche. Suddenly, the very thing we long for becomes dangerous. Psychologists describe this as an attachment paradox. The nervous system wants closeness, but the mind, shaped by past wounds, interprets intimacy as a threat. Neuroscience backs this up. When someone comes too close emotionally, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, lights up as if danger were near. In other words, love can feel like fire, warming, but also capable of burning. Spiritual traditions have long acknowledged this tension. In Christianity, love is described as both the greatest gift and the greatest test. The Stoics warned that attachments could enslave us if we did not master ourselves. Buddhism speaks of clinging and aversion, the two forces that pull us toward desire yet push us away in fear. And so we arrive at the paradox. We say we want love, but when it arrives, our defenses rise like walls. This paradox is not weakness. It is the sign of an unhealed heart, a survival strategy written into the body. But here's the truth. Until we recognize this paradox, we will keep running in circles, craving connections, yet running from it. Childhood shadows in the blueprint of attachment. If you want to understand why you push people away, you must return to where your story began. Childhood. Psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth discovered what they called attachment styles. Secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. These are not just labels, they are blueprints of how you learned to love. If your caregivers were reliable, present, and safe, your nervous system developed trust. The world was stable, love was safe. But if love was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, your mind learned to stay on guard. If love was absent altogether, you meet someone kind, but your inner child whispers, "Don't trust it. They'll leave, just like before." Neuroscience tells us that these early wounds etch neural pathways into the brain, pathways that shape how we interpret intimacy for decades to come. But spiritual wisdom reminds us, your past is not your destiny. The Bible speaks of renewing the mind. Buddhism teaches that the self is not fixed, but ever-changing. Neuroscience calls it neuroplasticity. The truth is this: you are not condemned to repeat your past. But to rewrite the story, you must first see the script you're unconsciously acting out, the fear of being seen. Why do we push away the ones we need? Because true love requires the most terrifying act, to be seen. Not the polished version of yourself, not the mask you wear in public, but the raw, unfiltered self. Scars, fears, and all. To be loved is to risk exposure, and exposure feels dangerous because deep down we carry a fear. If they truly knew me, they would leave. Shame becomes the silent barrier between us and intimacy. Neuroscience shows that rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. No wonder we build walls. Better to push someone away than to risk the unbearable sting of abandonment. Yet ancient wisdom turns this fear on its head. In Christian thought, love is not about perfection, but grace, being fully known and fully loved despite our flaws. Stoicism reminds us that hiding from truth is weakness, while facing it is strength. Buddhist practice encourages radical acceptance of self and others. The hidden psychology of love is this: intimacy is not built by hiding your flaws, but by revealing them. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the doorway to real connection. But until we face our fear of being seen, we will keep pushing away those who come too close. The brain on love. To understand why love feels overwhelming, we must look inside the brain. Neuroscientists have discovered that love activates the same reward pathways as addictive substances. Dopamine floods the system, oxytocin, the bonding hormone, deepens attachment, and serotonin stabilizes mood. But here's the twist. The same chemicals that bring euphoria also trigger fear. When we bond deeply with someone, the brain senses the possibility of loss. This activates the stress hormone cortisol, and the amygdala signals danger. In other words, the brain treats deep love as both ecstasy and threat. This duality explains why many sabotage intimacy. You long for closeness, but when the brain registers vulnerability, survival instincts tell you to run. The cycle continues: attraction to connection, to fear, then to withdrawal. Ancient wisdom anticipated what neuroscience now proves. The Stoics warned against being enslaved by passion, but not to reject it, instead to master it. In Christianity, love is described as a discipline, not just a feeling. And mindfulness teaches us to stay present with both joy and fear without letting either control us. When you understand the brain on love, you realize something powerful. The fear you feel is not proof that love is wrong. It is proof that love matters. Self-sabotage in the armor of control. Why do we sabotage the very relationships we long for? Because control feels safer than surrender. To love is to risk losing control over your heart, your emotions, your future. And so we armor up. We pick fights. We withdraw. We convince ourselves we don't care. Psychologists call this defensive detachment. Spiritually, it is pride disguised as strength. The Stoics would call it attachment to the illusion of control. Neuroscience shows that people with high self-protective tendencies often display hyperactivity in the anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's error detection center. In simple terms, the brain scans for threats even when none exist. But here's the irony. The armor that keeps you safe also keeps you lonely. You cannot selectively block out pain without also blocking out joy. You cannot numb heartbreak without also numbing love. The armor becomes the prison. The cure is not to drop all defenses recklessly. It is to cultivate discernment, to learn when fear is protecting you and when it is robbing you. Vulnerability is not about dropping the armor for everyone, but choosing the right people who can hold your truth with care, breaking the cycle. How do you stop pushing away the ones you need most? It begins with awareness. Notice the patterns. When you withdraw after someone gets too close, and when you sabotage with arguments, when you convince yourself you don't care. Awareness breaks autopilot. The next step is self-compassion. Neuroscience shows that self-criticism activates the brain's threat system, while self-compassion activates the soothing system, calming the nervous system and building resilience. Spiritual traditions echo this. Christianity teaches grace. Buddhism teaches loving kindness. Stoicism teaches acceptance of human imperfection. Then comes courage. Courage to lean in instead of pull away. To say, I'm scared, but I'm staying. Courage to let yourself be seen, flaws and all. This courage does not eliminate fear, it walks with it. Finally, practice. Relationships are not mastered in theory, but in repetition. Just as the brain rewires through neuroplasticity, love rewires through showing up again and again until closeness feels safe. Love is the path to healing. Here is the bold truth. Love is not just an emotion, but a medicine. Studies show that loving relationships lower stress hormones, boost the immune system, and even extend life expectancy. Spiritually, love is described as the highest commandment, the path to enlightenment, the bridge to God. When you push love away, you're not protecting yourself. You're denying yourself the very medicine that heals the wounds of the past. Love is the paradoxical cure. The thing we fear is the very thing we need to heal the fear itself. To embrace love is to risk pain, yes, but it is also to embrace the possibility of joy, growth, and transformation. The only way to heal the fear of love is to walk through it. Not alone, but hand in hand with another. Let's bring this all together. So why do we push away the ones we need most? Because love is terrifying. Because to be seen is to risk rejection. Because to open the heart is to surrender control. But here is the choice. You can live in safety, armored, and alone. Or you can risk the vulnerability of love and discover that the very thing you fear most is the thing that heals you. The cure for fear is not avoidance, but love itself. Love is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. So ask yourself, will you keep running from the ones who can heal you, or will you finally dare to stay? If this message stirred something in you, subscribe to LuminousSoul because this journey of wisdom, healings, and courage has only just begun.